So this is your typical thermal paper that you will be using for tattoos. From what I understand, Spirit is one of the best brands out there. Pretty sure it was the original thermal printer paper for tattoos. So your thermal paper or stencils is made up of 4 different layers. The first layer you have is the master layer. That is where your design will be transferred onto. The second layer is usually a protective layer, and there is another term for it called the onion layer, and it protects the master layer from getting any thermal ink onto it. Then usually you have the third layer, that is your carbon layer. This is usually just the ink layer, and this will be the ink that is transferred onto your master layer. And then you'll have a yellow layer at the bottom, which can provide some stability. I usually take this off before it's sent in the printer, either way. And for the sake of printing stencils out, we usually end up removing the protective layer, the brown layer in the middle. And you do this for even stenciling with your hand as well. And then what I usually do at this moment in time before I print my stencil out is I turn this over, then I take a ruler and I pretty much tear this portion off. And now I am ready. Okay, so we now have our thermal printer over here. We have our design, and then we have our prepared thermal paper that we already got prepared. So let's turn on the printer. And what I'll do is load up the thermal printer with the stencil paper now. And what we want to do is make sure that the ink side is pointing down when going into the printer. And depending on where you want this design on the page, like if you don't want to use the entirety of the paper, I mean, this is a kind of a pretty big design, so it might use a whole page already. Then you can adjust the paper like where you want it. Like if it's a smaller design and you just want to use the bottom portion, I mean, you can adjust it up to this point or whatever the design is, just so you're not wasting a bunch of paper. But for the sake of this one, it's a pretty large design. So let's set our paper right here. So I have mirror enabled, my deepness is 1, and I think we are all set to then take this design. And you want to point the design inwards because that's going to capture the image and that's what's going to transfer to the thermal paper. And then it looks like we are all set up. So then we hit copy. And you can gently guide this through. And it looks like it went on through. So it looks like we have successfully transferred the design over to make a stencil. And we could have used a lot less of this paper. So I could have adjusted it to maybe where it went in right here, instead of going through the top or completely in, instead of using the entirety of the paper. But let's check out what we are dealing with. And I would say that looks pretty good to be a stencil. So what I would then do, and also as a reminder, when you are doing this, you want to be wearing gloves because the carbon can get all over the place. Plus it's more sanitary to wear gloves while you're doing this anyway. But what we can do at this moment in time is we can cut around the stencil, and then we take that stencil, we apply our medium. I use Stencil Stuff for applying the stencils, and then we can apply the stencil to our client, and that's pretty much it. And if you guys have any other comments or questions or anything about this process, please let me know. Thank you.